I am back, guys. We got to talk about volume 2. Thank you guys for watching my last video. I didn't expect anybody to watch it, so thank you. We have a lot of new people here, so hello. Okay, so I got a lot of comments and I want to address them before we get into the recap from volume 2. We're gonna get into my analysis on some Byler scenes that we got, not a lot, and then we're also going to get into some issues that the volume had as a whole. From my last video where I went on a Byler deep dive, I got some comments talking about Mike specifically, which I expected. So we're going to talk about those really quickly, then we'll get into the next part. Okay. I don't really understand why people want a straight guy just to be gay all of a sudden. Okay, so as I said before, this is not a new development. We've actually can see things about Mike that are parallel to a queer experience or a gay experience. And that's not just coming from me, that's coming from other people who have personal experiences related to Mike and feeling pressure to conform and internalize homophobia. So it's not a straight guy who's going to be gay all of a sudden. There are signs, and I pointed them out in my video. And I think why people want someone like Mike to be gay is because his experiences so closely align with the experiences of other people. And it would just be nice for other people to see that progression and understand that the heteronormative world that we live in means that even people that we assume are straight aren't, and that we shouldn't assume people's sexualities. And that was kind of the main ending of the video. Okay, so the next comment is, just because Mike is a bad boyfriend doesn't mean that the only answer is that he's gay or bi. This assumption that he's been queer this whole time is laughable and a pure cope. Mike and Will getting together in the end makes no sense at all. Okay, so for this one, I feel like I explained it in my video, but Mike is not just a bad boyfriend. Mike is in love with his friend. He literally can't say that he loves her without his friend essentially confessing his feelings to him beforehand. So that being a bad boyfriend, it doesn't mean that you are gay or queer in some way, but Mike's motivations behind why he's a bad boyfriend might indicate that he is gay. And it's not an assumption that he's been gay this entire time. It's based off of some of his actions and some of the conversations that he has with Will. I'm not assuming that he's gay. This is my analysis of the scenes that he shares with Will and how there is gay subtext, a theory that I think will be revealed in the finale. And then Mike and Will getting together in the end makes no sense at all. It makes so much sense, and I think it would turn Mike's character from being very one-dimensional to being like, imagine if after all this time he is just like everyone says he will, he just rejects Will. Like, what is the buildup for all of this? And how does that connect with Will's story? What does that say about Will's story, his accepting himself, his coming out? What does that say that after all that he's been rejected? Nothing good. So I think it makes more sense for both of their storylines if they get together. Mike's desire to be needed and is finally being fulfilled by someone who needs him and loves him and sees the best in him just like he sees the best in Will. So I go more into it in my video, but about how this impacts Mike's character arc as well, from being someone who thought they needed a Tammy, someone who was strong and powerful like Elle is, to make them worth something, to make them feel needed, to make them feel like they were worth something, especially to the eyes of society, only to realize that that form of love doesn't make them feel completely loved, and eventually finding what they need outside of the fantasy and something real and something grounded in years of knowing each other. I think that's like such a great story. And when you think about like Mike and Eleven's relationship from a wider context, it makes a lot of sense for why we don't see them really kiss in this last season, why they're not sharing very many intimate moments, and a lot of people are just saying that Mike's a bad boyfriend, and I don't think that's the case. I think he's a bad boyfriend because he's in love with someone else, and that someone else is Will Byers. Now let's get to volume 2. First of all, there's a lot to say about this volume. Not all of it is going to be good things. I'm going to be a little bit critical. So, first, what are the scenes that we get? Okay, so the first scene that we get with Mike and Will is their hug after it's revealed that Will is Will the Wise. He's a sorcerer, he has powers, and he's siphoning the powers from Vecna and using it against him. Right. Then we get a couple of scenes with Will and Robin where they basically talk about coming out, what it was like for her, and he seems intrigued by the idea. Next is the scene where Mike is talking to Elle at the bathtub before she tries to help get Will back.
Hello everybody, it is your editor-in-chief, and if you're wondering why I look tired, it's because I've recorded this 3 separate times now. Nevertheless, we persevere. I realized that I left out a scene that I think is a hint to Mike's perspective and might hint at him being gay, which makes it important to the Byler story. Okay, so Robin and Mike have a conversation about what album should be the album that cuts off the bridge, which is the wormhole between the right side up and the upside down. Mike puts on a record called Human Cannonball, which is a song by the Butthole Surfers. That's a crazy name, but it's also obviously a crude reference to like a homosexual man and is obviously referencing like sexuality in there. Mike tells Robin that he wants to use this record by the band to play as the bridge collapses, and Robin says that that record's not good enough and that he needs to pick a different one. Mike says, which one would you choose? And Robin says, The Replacements. The Replacements have a history in gay culture. So do the Butthole Surfers. Both of these references are direct references to gay history. And then Mike says to Robin, okay, Lester Bangs. Okay, so Lester Bangs is a music critic from the 1970s and 80s, and he was a big proponent of The Replacements. So all of this kind of comes back around, and you might say, how is this related? It's basically like both of these picks are very gay. They're very gay subtext. Essentially what this tells us is that Mike and Robin both strongly relate to music about gay people, and I think it's interesting to have this be one of the scenes that shows off Robin and Mike's dynamic, showing that they're both very passionate about music, which we know from the last season that Robin has very particular taste in music because Eddie, when they're trying to get Max back from being in Vecna's mind, Robin is looking for music and she's looking through Eddie's stuff and she's like, what is this stuff? And Eddie says, this is music. So they just have very different tastes in music, and I wonder if maybe Mike has developed his music more in line with Eddie, and the fact that they're butting heads is interesting and could be either gay subtext or gay coding from my last video. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. Editing me just had to pop in and tell you about that.
And then we get Will's coming out scene. Okay, now, first of all, I do not mind the coming out subplot. I think it's great as a whole. The thing I do mind is the fact that Will mentions to Joyce about having a vision that his coming out would lead to his isolation and alienation from all of his friends and his family. I think it would have been more impactful to show us rather than tell us all of that, and show how brave Will is for still continuing to do that action despite everything he's been through, keeping this secret. I mean, genuinely, like, this is Will's biggest secret, and it's something that Vecna specifically preyed on him for, and something that when we started the series, like, was something that he was clearly being bullied for. It's his biggest secret. And in the coming out scene, there's like a lot of people there, and I just feel like if anything, his coming out could have been with the people who we started this journey with all along: Joyce, Jonathan, Mike, Lucas, Dustin, and that's it. I really do not believe, even though he does have this newfound confidence because of his powers, because of his self-acceptance, it could have been a reminder of the people who were with him all along and how all of them finally accept him for who he is. But the fact that Vecna is using his mind against him effectively bullies him into coming out is not good. It's really sad. And I think if anything should have been Will's choice, it should have been to come out. I think because not only has Vecna stolen so much from him to this point, but now he's stealing his ability to communicate how he's accepted himself to other people and show the newfound confidence he has in himself. Like, it's just really sad. Despite that, I do think that this scene was well acted, and I think it could have been better. I know that it took them a long time to get that scene right, and I'm sure that they agonized over getting the details right in a way that flowed. But this scene really felt way too fast for Will's character. I have a hard time believing, even with the newfound confidence that he has, that he's just going to spill his biggest, deepest, darkest secret to a room full of people he barely knows, like Steve Harrington. I love the man, and I know Robin told Will that he would be chill with it, but like, I don't know. It's just... Now let's get to the analysis. Okay, obviously the hug after Sorcerer, where Will says Mike's name softly, kind of pulled in to Will's face, Mike's face as they hug, which is the framing shows that it's more intimate than like a friendly hug that we've been seeing with Mike and Eleven, and also like Dustin and Steve. Like they like to use similar framing for consistent relationships. Okay, so next is Elle is telling Mike that Kali found the pregnant women in the lab and that they are going to continue Dr. Brenner's experiments, that the lab is not done. They will just create more and more experiments like 11 to use as machines, most likely. Mike, like the heart that he is, he tries to calm her down and tell her that they could do something about this. It's not over. She doesn't have to give up her life because her blood could possibly be used to create more kids that have powers. Because they were using Henry's blood, they could use Eleven's blood because they put Henry's blood in Elle as well. Mike is really trying to emphasize to her that they can still have a happy ending, like the conversation that they had in episode 1, I think, where he talks about how in D&D, which is again a return to childhood, a return to like, you know, being a kid, that the party would move to some far off place where they could be happy, some place with 3 waterfalls. And Elle looks kind of misty-eyed, like she's about to cry. And she asks Mike if that could be possible for her and the rest of the party. And he says that he thinks so. But in the context of this scene, Elle says, "This is not like one of your campaigns. You don't get to write the story." Which is when Mike says, "Maybe I don't, but we do. You, me, Lucas, Will, and Dustin. Because this is our story, and it starts with getting Will back." First of all, their embrace, all of this, the framing of everything, it's not very romantic. He doesn't like try to cheer her up with a kiss, saying that they're gonna be all right, other than the fact that Mike is trying very hard to keep her in high spirits and tell her that there is a happy ending for them. But even then, like when you look at what he says, you, me, Lucas, Will, and Dustin. So that's essentially the entire party, the core 4 plus Elle. This is our story, and it starts with getting Will back. So he's saying essentially that his story, none of their stories start unless Will is also there, which is honestly like romantic towards Will, because his story cannot start without them. Even Mike and Elle's story doesn't start without Will, which I think is interesting that he included that, because if it was really supposed to be a romantic scene between Elle and Mike, then why wouldn't he say that we choose the ending of our story, me and you? You know, like why does he include the whole party unless it's giving like the Jancy breakup that we got, where everybody was really confused. I kind of understood, but at the end I was still like, are we Are we broken up? It was very confusing. But I think the unproposal bit was really cute. So perfect. I love it for Nancy's character arc. And Jonathan's a little too. I wish he had more in his story, honestly. But because that is honestly one of the major losses of Stranger Things, is just losing track. You have so many characters, you lose track of where they're supposed to be going in the story. And Jonathan has been lost for a couple of seasons now. And I also believe Steve he's had some great moments, don't get me wrong, but the writers have definitely lost the plot with those two, because I don't know who they are without Nancy, and Nancy is on her own. Now to talk about and analyze Will's coming out scene. First of all, I'm just gonna talk about it. Okay, so Robin's expression in this scene, like the mixture of pride that she has, easily one of the best things about this last season, and seeing how proud she is of Will, like it literally like broke my heart a little bit. And Maya is such a good actress, like even like one shot of her face like made me cry. Charlie, Jonathan did a great job, but I expected those to be really good performances. Now, Mike is the one who initially walks in on Joyce and Will have this conversation about him coming out, and he is heading towards coming out to his mom when Mike walks in. He says, "I think you need to hear this too. Everyone does." And then he goes through this monologue about how he's like all of his other friends except he doesn't like girls. And when he says this, Mike kind of like shuffles in his chair a little bit and seems to listen intently. Lucas and Dustin are also listening, but they're not as focused, especially at the beginning of his monologue. They seem like they're looking elsewhere. Like it's very clearly supposed to be centering on Mike, and Mike is one of the people who is closest to him, not mentally but physically. Joyce is right beside him, then Mike, then Lucas, then Dustin. And then on the other side, one of my commenters pointed this out, they were like, 11 is on the other side of the room, and he says he had a crush on someone, and he says he was my Tammy. A lot of people were saying that this coming out scene sends the message that gay people are supposed to be happy and accept themselves, but they aren't supposed to have a happy ending. But we still have one more episode. We have one more episode, and I know a lot of people were expecting this volume to have more moments between the two. But why would you leave your greatest twist until, like, why would you give it away? Like, you have another episode. I know people want it to be very obvious, but it's clear that they've been planning this out for a very long time. And I did not expect this volume to have that much Byler scenes in it. That until the very last moment, which makes sense because a lot of people have been review bombing this last episode. I don't know if it's because of homophobia or because it was bad. I think it's a mixture of both. There were some issues that didn't have to do with Will and his coming out scene, but also there are a lot of people who watch this show who did not go out of their way to watch a show about gay people, and they might be upset. I don't align with those people, so I don't know what they're thinking. So I do believe we're going to finally get some context behind these character changes in Mike, and some context behind Will and Mike's relationship. And I do think that they've intentionally left us waiting for the finale to make a reveal for some information that they've been hiding in plain sight for a while now. And I watched an interview with them talking about how the worst reveals are ones that you don't see coming. They like the hints and giving us bits of information. A lot of people were upset that Will was comparing his love for Mike to Tammy's crush. And all I have to say to that is that Will is growing to accept his feelings. I believe he still thinks that Mike is not gay, like a lot of people out there who might be in a similar boat. So he is viewing the advice that he gets from Robin through Robin's lens, as it's just a crush, it's unrequited. And I think if he said to Mike, like, and to everyone in the room, like, hey, I was in love with a boy, like, I think to me, I would have been like, there's no way he would have said that. I just don't believe he would say outwardly that he was in love with a boy that he'd grown up with, just because he is pushing his feelings down so they don't seem as intense as they really are. So he has to say crush so it's not like the love of his life. Like, it's the writing was like bad when they have to clarify things to the fans that they didn't know, like clarifying that Jancy did in fact break up, and clarifying that Mike is now aware that Will has a crush on him. Yeah, I was in love. I was in love with this boy who was like my friend. Like, he would be like, oh, he was in love with me. Like, I just don't believe he would do that because it's just way too intense. So it makes sense to me that he's comparing to Robin's crush on Tammy. Like, what is the point of having him come out if this is not going to be a big conversation in the finale? So now to get to some potential issues with this Volume 2. Volume 1, while it had some issues, it was still fun to watch. It was still had some really great scenes. Now this volume has a lot of issues. For one, we have Holly kind of being our guiding character through Vecna Henry Creel's mind. And while that was really interesting in the initial first volume, it was kind of difficult because you have Max and Holly, which are just two characters stuck in Henry Creel's mind. We realize that Henry has kept them all in Dimension X, which is the Abyss. And all of the other characters are in the right side up. By now, in previous seasons, we would have had the characters who were in the Upside Down connect and merge storylines with the people who were in the right side up. But that hasn't happened yet, so it feels like there's just so much distance between Holly and all the other characters on the cast. Like, if this had been any other season and not the final season, this would have been fine. But because it's the final season, it just feels like all of these other characters are being pushed to the side for this new character, which I'm not gonna lie, it's interesting, but we have so many other characters who aren't getting the necessary screen time. It just feels like there's two separate shows. We need to be focusing on the solidified characters that we have. It just seems kind of weird to knock out one of your main characters and have his mom go through the same thing that she's been going through since the start of the show. It's all too much. And then there are some issues with the characters' reactions. Like, nobody seemed to be too crazy about Will being knocked out. I know he's done this before where he's been possessed by Vecna, but last time he did that, he was a spy. Like, no one's worried about that. And this has been a consistent issue. Like, Mike is not worried about his parents being in the hospital. I know they ended up okay, but it just seems kind of inconsistent. We could have gotten a scene with him and Karen where he feels guilty like Nancy does. Some people pointed out that Elle's speaking patterns sometimes revert back to being her season 1 self, where she speaks in incomplete sentences, and then also phases between that and fully formed ones. It's just like odd. Okay, Mr. Scott Clark being added into the gang so late is very interesting to me. Like, this man has helped them countless times and has never wondered why they have all of these questions about like time travel and all this stuff. Like, I know they're nerds, but it just seems odd to shoehorn him in at the last second. So the low points to me were Mike and Elle's character having everyone kind of crowd around Will like he's having a press conference for the coming out scene, instead of it being something that's more intimate. And then, but some high points of this volume to me was definitely Max. Also, the scene with Mrs. Wheeler was really awesome. Jancy, their scenes were really good. And obviously Robin and Will. I also think the reveal of the Upside Down not being another dimension but a wormhole was really awesome. They did that very well, and it's been a long time coming. I was wondering where the wormhole was when Jonathan and Nancy found the arcane orb. That was really cool, but I don't know whether they needed more time. I have very mixed feelings. I came from volume 1 really wanting to see the rest of the story, and now I'm coming from volume 2 feeling like wondering what happened. There's so many things that we need answers for that we just haven't gotten, so it just feels like there's nothing that's been resolved, even though there's been so many storylines that have been resolved, like Jancy, Lumax. Can I think of any others? Finally getting towards the end of Vecna's plan and what he has in mind for these kids. All of those things coming together, and yet it feels like nothing's been fully resolved because we haven't had that finale yet. So I would say in comparison to Volume 1, it's a big turnaround for Will's character a little bit. I'm confused by the decisions that they've made. I feel like there's so much that we need another episode to answer. I wonder if they needed another season to kind of work out some of these kinks. I don't know. But people have found that there is some scenes that have been cut, deleted. However, the actor who plays Mr. Scott Clark has confirmed that there's no extended version of this season, which happens in big budget shows. There's going to be revisions. There's going to be people who say that they need to cut certain things out. Netflix might have said to dial some things back, especially because they canceled some other gay shows like Boots. And just overall, we're going into a regression of progressivism. I wouldn't be surprised if they were told they had to delete certain things. However, there were certain things that even if they had to edit it around, I'm still surprised that they made certain decisions, like having everyone like Kali, Vicky, who else was there? Murray. Yeah, Steve, Murray, Kali, Vicky were all there. I mean, I don't understand why they were there. Not everyone needed to hear that, and I'm sure that was for plot reasons. Even that being included in the plot is kind of icky and sucks for Will. My man has been through so much. Let him use his powers and get his lick back, please. My sister told me that we have 5 confirmed deaths. So, and somebody was like, Henry Creel, Vecna, 1, Mr. Whatsit, and then, does he have another one? And Kali, which is crazy. Assuming that Vecna and Henry are one person, that would be one person, and then we don't know who may pass. But one interesting thing that I think has been pointed out is that Mike has a newfound thing for coffee. It's also mentioned on the WSQK. It's also mentioned on the radio station, which you can tune into, where they have a lot of Byler hints. I'm not even going to get into that because they have so many and it's legitimately torture. I don't know why they do this to everybody. It's actually so rude. But Mike has this newfound taste for coffee. He continues to get it while he's in the hospital. When he talks to Nancy at the hospital, he kind of is thinking he's in a daze. And potentially he has this secret that he's not telling anyone in his life about his crush on Will, or, the fact that he doesn't like girls. So all of that could potentially be evidence for him being Vecna. Max in season 4 had trouble sleeping before Vecna used her as a target. However, Vecna already has his 12 kids, so I don't know why he'd be using Mike unless it's to get to Will because he can't anymore, because Will has exposed his biggest, darkest secret, which would be interesting. But that's all we got from season 5, volume 2. There's been a lot of cutbacks on people's character. Honestly, especially for Elle, her character arc has fell flat this season, and it's been really sad. And honestly, I feel like they're planning to kill her. I hope that they don't. I really hope that they don't. I hope that those little things like her being in the field with the dead flowers are just coincidences. And I hope that they don't kill her character, and I hope that she finds that Kali is lying. But that's all that we get from this volume, and I think it's going to take the finale to really solidify things in canon, in universe. But Byler is still canon, and a 2-hour episode is more than capable of delivering on the endings of some arcs for these characters. But what I do know is that we don't really have the full story yet, and that it feels incomplete. This is a problem that I had with Squid Games when they did their part 1 and part 2 and part 3 drop. It was hard to really critique it as a story when you only have half the information. And I really don't like this method of telling stories where we get little drops of the story, but I totally understand why they do it. It also is frustrating if we're going to have Byler be canon and it's for like the last hour, 2 hours of the show, which kind of sucks. But the Duffer Brothers did say that one of their favorite ships was I think it's Korra-sama, which is a ship that I think is canon in the very last episode, like the very end of the series. So I wouldn't be surprised if they end up doing the same thing because they were so inspired by this show. So all in all, don't lose hope. Don't lose to doubt. We have one more episode. Based on what we've seen through this volume, they handled Will's character without a lot of care, to put it lightly. I think bullying him into coming out is probably the worst thing they could have done. But all in all, I think this gives us another good setup for their relationship, especially since Mike now knows that Will has a crush on him. So don't lose hope. We're gonna see in the finale what happens. I just want to thank all of y'all for watching my video and for subscribing. Thank you so much. It's so sweet. I'm so glad you guys liked my deep dive. I didn't think anyone would watch it, so imagine my surprise when 5,000 people did. This will probably be my last video on Byler, so if you have anything else you want me to cover, I was thinking about covering the Bridgerton series, like as a recap at the end of January. That video won't be like an hour and a half long though. It'll be shorter, I promise. But yeah, thanks for coming along with me. We will stay strong, Byler shippers. Stay strong. Hold the front. At least I didn't have to wear that stupid shirt. What are you doing? Click off the video. Bye, Ireland. Bye, Ireland. Bye, Ireland. Bye, Ireland. Good luck, guys. Stay safe out there, Byler shippers. Mike Wheeler, I know what you are.